In this episode, we're going to be discussing the topic of porn and how it's got a grip on today's culture. You and your wife have started a nonprofit called Team Vulnerable.
Yes.
It's helping couples, individuals, teens with their pursuit of getting out of this addiction to porn.
Yes.
It might be uncomfortable for people to maybe listen to this because if you hear, especially in the Christian culture, porn, you're instantly probably clamming up or like, this is very uncomfortable, right?
It absolutely is. And if you're listening and you're saying, well, my kid doesn't have this problem or I don't have this problem, well, this is still going to apply to you because porn is a symptom of a larger problem. So whether you're watching too much Netflix, eating too much food, if you're smoking weed now that it's legal, or if you're drinking too much or whatever that thing may be, this is going to apply to you. And even if it doesn't fully apply to you, it's going to apply to someone that you know. So you're going to want to make sure to listen.
How did you get to this point of starting this ministry?
Yeah, my story was I had a great childhood, amazing parents, Christian school, and I had a very sheltered childhood. Like most millennials, we had one computer in the house, and there was only one time I was home alone, and I went to the computer when I was about 14, and I typed in the word boobs. And results came up on the screen. I went, oh my goodness. And then the garage door was opening. I ran back to my room and I said, well, I did something that I wasn't supposed to do. It felt good, but it felt wrong. And I'm not quite sure. But I said, you know what? It doesn't matter because I'm never probably going to be home alone again. I'm never going to have access to porn again. So, it's okay. Just a few weeks after that, my father walks into my room and he says, hey, we just went to the Apple store, bought some laptops. They threw in an extra iPod video for free. I thought I'd throw you a bone here. Are you good with this? Can you handle this? And here's the key point with this. My parents were amazing, amazing parents, still are. But they had no reason not to trust me. I was a good kid. I did fine in school, had plenty of friends. There was no reason not to trust me. But when I said to my dad, sure, you can trust me, once that door was about 3/4 the way closed, I was already starting to look up porn. And what happened was, early on, I felt like I was in control, but very quickly after that, I felt like I was losing control. And I was looking at porn all the time. I was even looking it up when I was driving home from school sometimes, almost getting in an accident. And it just became really, really bad. And so flash forward, I met the woman of my dreams, Becca, who is now my wife. And I knew that she was the woman that I wanted to marry. And I said, you know what? 3 months before we get married, I'm done with this porn thing. And then I said, 2 months before we get married, I'll be done with this porn thing. 1 month, 1 week, and it's the night before we get married, and I'm watching porn. And on our wedding night, I wasn't even able to have sex because I had what's called porn-induced erectile dysfunction. And that obviously drew a wedge in our marriage. Go ahead.
I was going to interrupt you there because, did she have any clue that you were involved with pornography?
She had no clue, and it was on our wedding night. I told her, I said, you know what, Becca? I'm sorry. I didn't mean for things to go this way. I love you. I think you're beautiful. I think you're amazing. But I'm deeply addicted to porn. And in that moment, I didn't say I wanted to quit, but I said I was sorry. And so for those next 3 years, we kind of just slid this thing under the rug until COVID rolled around. And one night, Becca says, do you want to go have sex? And I said, well, fine. I was actually upset with her because I wanted to go look at porn instead of having sex with my beautiful wife. And so we went to the bedroom. Things weren't working out. ED was flaring up. And eventually I just said, you know what, Becca, you're the problem. You're the issue. It's not me, it's you. And I storm out of the room. She's crying. And I go to the living room about 20 feet away from us right now. And I sit down on the couch. I put my hands on my head and I just prayed to God. And I said, God, I need help. And in that moment, the Lord told me very clearly, go to Becca and ask for that help. And I'll tell you what, that was the absolute last thing in the world that I wanted to do. But I knew that's what I needed to do if I truly wanted to have freedom from porn. And so I got up, I went to Becca, and I said, Becca, I'm sorry. I have a problem. I can't beat this thing on my own. I love you more than this issue, but I need you by my side. Will you be there to help me? And to my surprise, Becca said, okay. Wow. And we started to work through this and we started to gain healing. Mm-hmm. And although things didn't get all the way better once I had that tough conversation, we noticed one thing. Addiction dies in the light, and it can only thrive in the darkness. And when we learned that your spouse can be your ultimate teammate in this process for you overcoming this, we said we have to share this message with as many people as possible.
And so was your background in ministry at that point?
My background wasn't in ministry, and what was crazy about it was I was in real estate at the time, and my wife and I were the top residential assisted living realtors in Arizona, and we were making a ton of money. We were flying all over the place. We've been to Europe 3 times. I did a TED Talk, but not only was I deeply addicted to porn, I was drinking too much, I was smoking weed, I was eating too much, and I was just struggling with depression, anxiety, paranoia, and anger. And all of these things were going on when on the outside on Instagram, things look really good. You know, it looks great. Look at those people, man. They have it all. But really on the inside, I was a broken man who was searching for answers.
And going back even further in your walk with Christ, when did you begin your relationship with Jesus?
I began my relationship with Jesus from a very, very young age. I grew up in a family where we actually moved out to Arizona to start a church of all things from upstate New York. Sounds like what someone in the witness protection program would say. But we came out here to start a church, and so I was always going to church. I loved the Lord, but this was the one thing in my life that no matter how hard I tried, I could not beat it. I could stop smoking if I wanted to. I could stop drinking if I wanted to. I could eat healthy if I wanted to, but I could never quit this thing of hardcore pornography. And
I bring that up just not to get your testimony, but I think it's important for listeners, and you are listeners, and not only for you guys, but for me as well, is like, even if you have a relationship with Christ, it doesn't mean that everything is roses, right? And that there is things that are challenging. But, so you going back into your guys' story, you're on the couch, you say, I need help. Then it's like, we've got to get this message out. So did somebody walk with you to get to that point?
Well, really what happened next in our journey was we started looking for answers. And I didn't know how to overcome this. I just thought, is it more willpower? Am I supposed to just pray 25 times a day? I mean, what's truly the answer to gain freedom from this? And for Becca, she would look up things online and it would say, if he's watching porn, that means he's cheating on you, which means you're going to get a divorce. And so get your affairs in order. And it was a very difficult time for us during that period of our lives. But what happened for us is, like I mentioned, we brought this into the light, started to get a lot better. But in the next season of our lives, we were working at a family business and we were teaching on how to do residential assisted livings. And out of nowhere, my father, who was the CEO of that company, just dies. Boom. And all of a sudden, I'm put into the head position of a $10, $12 million company, 40 people underneath me. And I'm going, oh my goodness, I'm giving everything the world would tell you would make you happy. And the Lord put on my heart and Becca's heart to walk away and to follow him. And we said, what are you talking about? We had to be crazy, But this calling just kept coming on our heart, And all of a sudden we just say, you know what? We can be like Jonah. We can wait for him to send the whale, or we can just go. And so we left. And about 2 weeks after that, Becca and I were out at dinner. And almost at the same time, we felt this calling on our heart. And we just said out loud, the Lord wants us to help couples overcome porn use as a team. And that was a really amazing moment. But it was also an incredibly scary moment because, like I said, I was still kind of struggling with it. I said, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist. How am I supposed to help people with this? And I remember a few days after that, I was working out in the gym and it felt like a lightning bolt hit me from the sky. And I fell to my knee and I just felt the Lord say, raise up an army to fight this evil power. And in that moment, I realized that it wasn't going to be me or Becca being the reason why someone was able to gain freedom from porn. It was going to be the Lord. And all we had to do was follow the Lord and he was going to lead us where we needed to go. And so what Becca and I did at that point is we spent about 6-7 months researching, studying, and then we made a course on how to gain freedom from porn. And I put in the work in my own life. I gained freedom from porn. And we put that course out there. And here's what's really amazing about it. The first student who got signed up for our course, his name was David. And he was messing up, we'll call it that. That's a PG way of saying what we're talking about. He was messing up 6 to 10 times per day. He was looking at pornography. And he was just about to get married. And he said, Manny, I want to do this. I want to get started. And when we were first starting, we were charging about $3,000 for the course. And a lot of people wanted this course, but a lot of people couldn't afford it. And so I said, David, this is easy. You just got to get the course. Let's get going. Come on. What are we waiting on? And he said, I know, but literally, you could check my bank account. I can't do this if I wanted to. And I felt the Lord put on my heart. He said, just tell him to do whatever he can. And I said, David, don't worry about it. Just do whatever you can. He says, I got $40. I said, then you got the course. And David became the very first person to get our training. But here's what's amazing about it. He took the course. His life was changed. He's got married. He has a child now. He's got a better job. He's in the best shape of his life. But what was so cool is I asked David, I said, David, tell me a little bit about yourself. He said, well, I'm in the Army National Reserve and I'm actually in the Army barracks right now. And I said, David, would you believe it if I told you the Lord told me to raise up an army to fight this evil power? Wow. And the first guy who gets signed up's name is David. He's in the Army National Reserve, and he's in the Army barracks. I said, if that isn't God, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
And in that very first year of us making our course and putting it out there, we had about 300 people from over 20 countries get our course. It was just amazing to see what the Lord has done. So we made our course free. We are a nonprofit. So if someone goes through a course or they want to donate, they want to help us, that's how they can do it. But we wanted to help as many people as possible. So that's what we did there.
Wow, that's amazing. And I like that as you were sharing that, before you went into it, you counted the cost in a sense by doing the research.
Yep.
Like, what is this going to look like? And with that research, there are some like mind-blowing statistics that your website offers.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and share those. 91.5% of men and 60.2% of women from the ages 18 to 73 in the United States watch porn monthly.
Yep.
Excessive interest in porn was the significant factor in 56% of divorces. 10% of American adults believe that they have a porn addiction. That means that they are watching on average between 10 to 12 hours per week of pornography. How do you fight that? I mean, like, again, when God gave you that word that you need to build an army, like building an army, what does that look like? And I think that as people hear these statistics, like, what defines pornography? What is porn?
Well, in simple terms, porn is anything that's made for you to lust over, whether it's an image, it's a video. We can talk about specifics. I don't need to get into all that. I don't want to trigger anyone or anything of that nature. However, there is so much pornography out there right now. There's a national representative survey that went out between, it's 84.4% of boys 14 to 18 have viewed pornography. 57% of girls 14 to 18 have viewed pornography. In the church, it is 68% of church-going men view pornography on a regular basis. 50% of pastors view porn on a regular basis. And if you look at 18 to 24-year-olds, it's 76% of them view porn on a regular basis. 21% of Christian men believe they're addicted to porn. 2% of Christian women believe they're addicted to porn, and that's something people don't talk about. In 2018, 29% of Pornhub users were women, which was a 3% increase from the previous year. This isn't just a man's issue. Everybody is watching this thing. And when we say everybody is watching this thing, 1 in 10 porn users is under 10 years old. The average age of exposure is 8 years old. And what is this doing to kids' minds? We talk about how bad pornography is. 88% of porn scenes contain physical aggression. That's hitting, slapping, spitting, choking, you name it. 49% of porn scenes contain verbal aggression. I won't say those words out loud. It is warping children's minds more than we know. Children who viewed intentionally violent porn were 6 times more likely to show sexually aggressive behaviors than those who had not. It is warping people's minds, but it's also warping people's body. As I talked about, I had ED from porn. And it's called porn-induced erectile dysfunction. There was a Cambridge study that came out that said that 60% of participants who had ED with their partner, but not with porn. And so people can get things going when they're watching porn, but not with their partner. So that's starting to affect relationships, which leads into people getting divorces over this. Yeah. But even bigger than that, people don't even want to get to the point of marriage anymore. There was a data center of the Pew Research Center, rather. It showed that 63% of men 18 to 29 were single by choice, which was up from 51% in 2019. So people aren't even interested in getting relationships, and it's warping people's minds more than we know. 20.7% of straight men have viewed gay porn in the past 6 months. Think about that. Think about how Gen Z, 28% of them say, I'm something other than straight. This is such a large issue. It is literally decimating populations. We have in Japan, 36% of men in 2011, 16 to 19, had no interest in sex. In France in 2008, 20% of men 18 to 24 had no interest in sex. In Italy, if you are under 40, you have a 10% chance higher of getting ED than if you're over 40. This is a massive, massive issue, and we need to stand up and we need to say, you know what? This is an evil and we need to help.
Yeah, wow. Definitely an evil that we need to stand up against. The the mindset then for me is like, how has this gone so rampant? Because like, okay, I'm in my 40s and we didn't have the access to cell phones or iPads, when I was in high school. It was, but yet it was still an issue, but it was primarily, if your buddy had magazines or, you, whatever TV show or if anything like that. But like in your research, how has this, is it just because of internet access that has just blown up? Like, and then like, how is it that we are not talking about it as a church as much? Like, I know that you might not know that, but like, what is it that, in your opinion, that has caused this epidemic to blow up in such a major way? And then why is it not being communicated?
Yeah, I was on the leading edge of that. That's when the iPhone came out. Everyone got handed a supercomputer where you could look up anything you wanted instantly. And if you type in the search term boobs, which don't do that, you'll get 369 million results in 0.79 seconds. And we hand this to children and we expect them to say, hey, be good, Johnny. And 45% of children who watch porn do so in part to learn about sex. So think about that. The parents go, I don't know what the purpose of sex is, and I feel awkward telling my kids, so I'm going to hope that someone at the school tells them, and it just trickles on and on and on. And if you're not teaching them about sex, then porn is going to teach them about sex, because whether they've seen it now or tomorrow, they are going to see it eventually. There was a study that was done where they asked parents, how many of your kids have watched porn? And 75% of the room said, my kid hasn't watched porn. Out of that 75%, 53% of those kids have watched porn. A lot of times people talk about how porn is so popular in the Christian community. And they say, well, why is that? A bunch of hypocrites? What? Well, here's why it is because you can pull out this supercomputer and you can put it in your pocket and you can hide it and it's free. And the other thing is when you grow up in a family where the parents are the ones who are in charge, which is not what you see the world teaching nowadays. It's the kids get to run everything. But when the parents are in charge, those kids feel sometimes powerless. So when they have this supercomputer and they get all the power, they can see anything that they want and they can still keep a good face out in public. That's why this drug is so primed for the Christian community. And when we talk about why is the church not speaking up about this, 50% of senior pastors and 64% of youth pastors admit they've struggled with porn currently or in the past. It all starts from the top. If they aren't standing up and saying, you know what, I struggle with this. You know what, this is a problem of mine and I need to get help with this, then we are never going to have a widespread change. And I think the biggest lie that the devil is telling the world is that porn is natural. You can never have freedom from this. And you know what? It's just a screen. It doesn't affect anyone else. And those couldn't be further from the truth because I could have kept buying into those lies. I used to buy into those. You know what? My wife would never accept me if I told her about this. You know what? There's not freedom. You know what? This is a natural thing. You know what? King Solomon, he had 1,000 wives. And you know what? Guess what? That didn't work out well for him. And God told him not to do that. And guess what? When David was looking over the balcony at that woman bathing, that didn't work out well for him either. And so I would justify these things in my mind as many times as I could. But I'm telling you, freedom is possible.
Yeah.
Freedom. Not this whole, I hope I have the house by myself so I can look. No, I don't have those urges because I handled the pain inside. And I want to remind you of something. Porn is just a symptom of a bigger problem. Once we handle the problem within, you no longer have those same desires to go look at porn. Because I tell people all the time, I could poke out your eyeballs and you never watch porn again. Is that victory? I say no, right? I could throw you in a cage. Is that victory? No. Why are you going to porn in the first place? And what it comes down to is this. There's a pain or trauma that has not been resolved in your life. And what happened is somewhere along the way, you started going to porn and it felt good. It was a temporary pain reliever. You said, oh, that's nice. That's nice. And then somewhere along the way, your brain lost control. And then somewhere along the way, your brain was just programmed to any pain that you have in your life, whether you're hungry, angry, lonely, tired, bored, or stressed, it says, I know what we can do to make you feel better. We can go look at porn. And that's what we call halting the BS. So if you ever have those feelings, you say, what's really going on here? And this is why what we teach is having that person who's closest to you in your life, whether that's your parent, whether that's your wife, your girlfriend, your best friend, whoever it is, to go and talk to. Because it's not about porn. It's, hey, I'm just having some feelings right now. Can we just talk? And they go, are you hungry? Are you angry? Are you lonely? Are you tired? Are you bored? Are you stressed? And when we handle our problems like men and women who don't run away from their problems but handle them, what happens is the brain starts to get rewired. And the brain says, oh, there's multiple options to this problem in the future. And we do that day after day after day. And eventually, porn is no longer even close to being the top option whenever a problem is presented to us.
Wow, that's a lot of great information there. And I would encourage people to rewind and listen to that, because I think what really stood out to me right off the bat is, why is the Christian church not talking about this? It's because it starts at the top. Well, instantly my mind went to dads, moms. It starts with you guys and your family. Let's take the church into the house, and so it's like we have to examine the heart now. And if you think that your kids are not being exposed, you're deceiving yourself, or you've been deceived from the enemy. And I think it's so important to just say the reality is if you as a parent struggle with pornography, that if you don't want your kids to follow after that, because I think most people, at least I'll speak in the believer realm, most believers want to get out.
Yep.
And they don't want to be entangled with this anymore. And I think that it takes that heart of self-examination and being open and raw and seeking help for yourself first, so that your children don't fall into that sin as well. And if they do, you know how to help them and parent them, and not just to turn away from it. I think that's the biggest challenge as being a father myself of four kids, 3 boys, 1 girl, is it does feel weird to talk to your kids about pornography. Mm-hmm. It feels weird because I have a 12-year-old, and he plays Fortnite. He's just a kid, goes outside, plays with our chickens and our goats and stuff like that. And he's a kid, but I'm like, there's no way. Mm-hmm. There's no way that he's already been influenced. Now, is there signs that a child or an adult are involved with pornography without checking their search history?
Yeah, absolutely. You're going to start noticing things: anger, paranoia, mood swings. If you grab towards their phone, are they freaking out? What's going on there? And, you mentioned something of bringing this up to your children, and you hit it on the head so perfectly. It starts with you. If you are struggling with pornography, which chances are you are, you need to get your own house in order. And you might be saying, well, there's no hope. There's no way I can actually have her. That's why we did what we did. My wife and I teach this course to teach your spouse how to love and support you through this, because you don't want to be hurting your spouse. You don't want to be watching porn. You're doing it for some reason. And we teach you how to overcome this, and we teach you how to be a team. But it all starts with one moment of vulnerability and strength and handling things in your own life before you go out and try to teach your children and how to show them how to have freedom as well. So when it comes to talking to your kids, the number one thing is this: do it. Just do it. It is going to be awkward. It isn't going to be fun. But you need to understand, why is porn bad in the first place? Because I remember as a child, they said, don't have sex because Christians don't have sex before marriage. Well, why? Why not? It seems like a really fun thing. I like the opposite sex. Why not? Well, here's why. It's not that the Lord is the fun police. The Lord loves you. The Lord wants you to have joy and happiness and holiness in His way. Why not have sex before marriage? You could get an STD. You could have sex with someone who gets you pregnant who doesn't want to stay with you. It could be a stalker. It could be someone who ties you up and throws you in their basement and kills you. It could bring shame to your family, and you're going to have to bring that into your next relationship. Bam. All of those things are reasons why. And if you can share that with them of why not look at porn, why it's a bad thing, then they can start understanding that as well. Because one of the things that we talk about a ton is in the 1980s, after the health threats of smoking became widely publicized, about half of Americans who had ever smoked addictively quit, and more than 90% of them did that without any kind of treatment. So just by speaking up, you literally can save a future marriage. You can prevent a rape, and you can prevent a suicide. And you can do all those things just by having that one moment of strength and vulnerability, standing up in your own life, and then helping your children, and they can help their children and their children. We can change this world.
Yeah. And I think that to add on to that is that God has given us the responsibility to train up these children in His ways. And we are failing if we don't address all areas of life. It is natural for someone to desire to have sex.
Yes.
It's God designed. Sex is beautiful.
Yes.
And praise God that he has given that to us, to share with our spouses. And I think that, to go along to the reasons of why you don't want to have sex before you're married and why you don't want to engage in pornography is because God has created someone, for you. Not everybody gets married. I get that. But those who I look at the beginning is like a helpmate, somebody to help you to become one with you. And the way that my wife described it to me is like, it's you're taking something from me. Yes. That is mine, that God has given to me, yes. And like when you make your vows to your spouse, you are vowing that my body is your body. In fact, it speaks about that in Corinthians. It's like my body is your body, her body is my body. Just like to where we're one. And when you are involved in pornography, you are taking something away that is your spouse's.
Yes.
And I think that is the key. Is like you want your kids to have godly marriages. Well, this is one of the areas that makes a godly marriage.
Yes. I remember reading in a book, in a library, in a school library, and it said,
was that Valley?
Well, I'll leave out the names, but I remember I was looking for reasons to mess up. I was looking for reasons to be able to justify my behavior. And I remember it saying, well, it's okay every once in a while to masturbate. And sometimes people bring that up. Well, hey, it's natural for these kids. Well, guess who never masturbated? Guess who never had sex? Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Okay? And he lived a perfect life and he lived just fine. So don't worry about it. And here's the thing. That energy that they have going on in their body, they need to use that to learn how to talk to the opposite sex. They need to use that energy to build skills, because when they don't, when you teach them, you can press a button and you can have instant gratification. You can press a button, have weed delivered to your house and make boring situations fun, or alcohol to your house and numb your emotions. When they're taught that, then they become an incel nation where they're not interested in having sex. They become these asexual creatures who are living in their parents' basements, and that's not a good thing. So a lot of times people say, well, there's nothing we can do. Well, we can teach them why this isn't a good thing. We can put covenant eyes on their phone. We can educate them. And even if we can't help everyone, if we could even help one person, save one life, one marriage, prevent one rape, would it be worth it? And that's what I want to ask you.
Absolutely. As you were talking as well, you're saying, what was the average age right now that the kids are being influenced by pornography?
The average age of exposure is 8 years old.
Are you seeing like the stats now? Are these 8-year-olds really gravitating to pornography?
I just had a friend come over. She was talking to us and she said, my son, who's in the 5th grade, he just got exposed to porn by one of the other classmates. And they have safe blockers on the computers. They have all these safeguards. It's a Catholic school. They make sure that they don't have this stuff. And guess what? Here's the point. Your kid is going to see porn at some point in their life. They're going to be exposed to drugs at some point, alcohol at some point. The key is, how do they react in those situations? What was so cool about it is that child went to his parents and said, I saw something that I wasn't supposed to see. And then those parents said, well, thank you for sharing that with me. Not shame. They said love, understanding, grace. And they said, here's why this isn't a good thing. And here's what you need to be careful of. And here's what's going on. And that child stood up for what's right. He had that moment of strength and vulnerability. And those parents didn't bring hate and shame. Because if hate and shame worked, by the way, for stopping watching pornography, everyone would have already stopped by now. We need grace, love, and understanding is what we truly need.
How does confessing this sin start the healing process?
One of our biggest core tenets that we teach is that it's about taking one step in the right direction each day. And the problem with people is they've been trained to have instant gratification. And I'm telling you right now, if you're saying, I want to stop watching pornography, you are not going to have a Saul to Paul moment where you're hit with this lightning bolt and bam, all of a sudden I don't want to watch porn anymore. No, you need to have one moment of strength and vulnerability each day and start walking on that path towards freedom. And for me, that first step was, hey, I need to ask my wife for help. That next step was, hey, I need to get some blockers on my phone. Hey, that next step was, I need to read some books on how I can overcome this thing. The next step was, I need to implement those things. One step in the right direction each day. And what was amazing was, I was addicted to porn for 15 years, and I couldn't believe how easy it was to not watch porn after I implemented these things in my life. Once I handled that pain inside, once I created that lifestyle for freedom, I no longer had those same desires. And I just said to my wife, I remember we were walking down the street right over there, and I just said, I cannot believe I spent 15 years of my life believing that lie that I couldn't overcome this. My life is so much better now that I don't watch porn. It's not worse. It is better. I have the 3 most beautiful children you could ever ask. My wife, we have love, connection, and intimacy like I never could have imagined. It's been absolutely incredible. And you know what? We left a job where we are making a ton of money to do this, where we make not a ton of money. And guess what? I have peace because I trust in the Lord, and the Lord gave me the strength to be able to gain freedom. And now I can help that next person, that next person, that next person. And you can do the same. You can make a difference.
And I think that the key point there is that you identified the pain within your heart. For you, what was that? What was the root cause?
There was 2 key moments. Early on in my life, when I was in about the 1st grade, I was bullied. I was held back. I was not doing well in school. I was diagnosed with ADD, dyslexia, and short-term memory. Bit of a joke. And the other thing was, during the recession, we were doing very well financially, and all of a sudden it was, we're not doing well. And it was this period of time in our lives where it was like money was, and I was carrying all these things into my adulthood. I was making tons and tons of money. And instead of having peace about that, I would say, I have this money, but I'm so scared I'm going to lose it. I need more. And the more I got, the more I was afraid I was going to lose it all. And it wasn't until I brought that to the Lord and I just said, God, you're the one who's in charge. It's not me. I'm not the one who's going to provide. It's going to be you. That I was able to gain peace in that regard, in the regard of low self-esteem and self-hatred toward myself. I said, God, who am I in your eyes? And I drew closer to the Lord. And once I took the time to heal that pain that was going on inside, like I said, I no longer had that animalistic urge of I need to watch this thing, or I don't feel like I have control. No, those feelings went away. And then it was just a matter of creating a lifestyle for freedom, things like covenant eyes on the phone, working out, eating healthy, getting good sleep. Then it became insanely easy not to look at these things. But that's one of the biggest things is people don't know why they're doing what they are doing. And that's one of the biggest steps in the process is handling the root cause of the pain. And we teach you to talk to those voices that are going on in your head. And you may have this later today. It'll say, you know what, that was a good talk on pornography. Handle that thing tomorrow, but why don't you go jerk off today? And you go, stop. Who are you? And that voice is a younger version of yourself that's trying to help you. It's saying, you know what, you don't want to give up your drug because the drug makes you feel good. And you have to say to that voice, hey, you know what? It's okay. We don't need to handle our problems like a little hurt boy anymore. That was the best way we knew how to handle our problems back then. But I am now becoming the man that God designed me to be, and I don't need to do this anymore. And you need to help that younger version of yourself realize that we're not doing this anymore. And that's one step at a time.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. As you were talking, I was just thinking of like, even when it comes down to lusting over another woman, you know, it's the same, you know, Jesus said that if you lust over a woman, it's the same thing as committing adultery in your heart, right, with her. And so it's like, what is it that is triggering you to look outside of what God has already given you or what God is going to give you? Is trusting in him. And ultimately it's you being in control. You don't want to give up control of life. And that when there is stress, you look for ways to help yourself instead of, you know, as believers, we're called to trust in the Lord in all things, you know, cast our cares upon him for he cares for us, as the Bible says, you know? And so it's like this idea of the root issue. It's yes, pornography is, I think, the outflow of these issues. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
And so if you don't deal with the heart, and the only one that can deal with the heart is Jesus Christ. And so I would encourage people, you know, maybe you don't even have a relationship with Jesus and you're just been in the church, grown up in the church. You know, there's this decision of now is the time. I believe the Holy Spirit is truly speaking probably to your heart now and saying, I want a relationship with you. I can help you with these things. It's not just going to church is going to get you out of this. It's not going to Christian school. It's having a relationship with Jesus Christ. And so I would definitely urge you, you know, just to pray, you know, not to get all gospel-y, but that ultimately that's what it comes down to. Absolutely. You know, Romans 10:9 says, if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. And I believe that at that moment, when you're saved, the old man dies and you are then born again into a new creation. And that new creation is in Christ Jesus. And by him alone, he is your identity.
Yes.
And through that new identity, you then can have freedom over these these tactics by the devil that is trying to kill you, and kill your soul. But yet Jesus Christ wants to set you free, and he has set you free because, number one, you are forgiven of your sins. Jesus paid the penalty for that, and that you have then now been cleansed by his blood. And through that understanding of who Jesus Christ is, you then will have that helper, the Holy Spirit, to help you walk through these. And going through these steps that Emmanuel and his wife have set up, and through this ministry that is definitely God inspired, is something to really grasp hold of, because it's rooted back into Jesus Christ, right? Yes, and so would you mind sharing kind of like, okay, what if somebody decides to take this step? It's a step of faith.
Yes.
What does it look like to be enrolled into these classes?
It's a great question. It's an online course that we have. We're releasing a book here in a few months, so be on the lookout for that. But we have a free online course. I took away all the excuses for you. There's no reason why you shouldn't be taking action after this. But it's very simple when we lay it down. 7 steps. You have to admit you have a problem. You have to ask for help. You got to clean house, getting rid of all those bad things, all that filth that comes in through your phone and computers. We need to handle the root cause. We need to create an environment for freedom. We need to dismantle the porn fantasy, and then you need to pay it forward. And I would just say, one of the biggest lies that's probably being whispered to you right now is, your spouse, they wouldn't love and support you through this. And you know what? Freedom really isn't totally possible. Who do you think is whispering that on your shoulder? Do you think if Jesus was sitting next to you right now listening to this, he would be telling you, yeah, you know what? I don't know if Debbie can really help you through this. I don't know if mom or dad can help you through this. No, that is coming from the adversary. And I want to remind you of something. When you hear the devil on your shoulder, know that that is actually a good thing, because who did the devil spend his time on in the Bible? Who did he go to see in the desert? Well, that was Jesus. He tried to tempt him when he was weak. He spent his time going after people that he knew could make a difference. And I'm telling you what, I had all those lies being said to me over and over and over again. This is not you're some horny animal that needs to get off. Only 5.9% of participants in a study said that sexual dissatisfaction was the reason they watch porn. There is a problem going on inside, and the person who cares most about you in your given life is your spouse. If it's not them, it's your best friend. If it's not them, it is your parents. If you are a child listening, that is your parents. If it is your in a serious relationship, it's your girlfriend. And here's what I want to point out. These conversations are not about, hey, I'm horny to go to this website. It has nothing to do with porn. Yes, porn is part of the problem, but it's part of the problem. The bigger problem is there are problems in your life that you are not dealing with. And until you stand up and be the godly man or woman that you are supposed to be, the devil will continue to afflict you with this problem.
So good. I mean, the point of just dealing with the heart and just admitting it, and just seeking the Lord and seeking those who love you, and saying, I know that God has put you in my life because, one, you love me and you're committed to me, and to know that through that commitment, through your spouse, your parents, your best friend, your girlfriend, whatever it may be, that there is somebody to walk with you, that you're not alone. And going through this program, I mean, is there coaching that happens with them, or is it just the resources that are given to them on how to handle it?
When I was looking for options out there were options like Sexaholics Anonymous or Celebrate Recovery, and these things are great, right? And for some people, those are the right options. But I always felt kind of like it's the blind leading the blind, and I don't need to be talking to this group of strangers. I need to be in community with the person who I'm closest to in my life. And so what we teach you at Team Vulnerable is how to get that teammate, which is your spouse, how to get those outside accountability and support partners, how to have that pastor on your team. Maybe it's a counselor that you need, or a therapist on your team that you need. And so we teach you how to create that team around you. And so I'd love to be able to work with everyone one-on-one every single day, but you don't need to be talking to me. You need to be talking to that person that cares the most about you on this earth, which is your spouse, which is your parent, which is that friend whoever that person is in your life, you know who that is when I say that out loud. That's who you need to get around on your team. And we're going to teach them how to love you, how to support you, how to have grace and understanding. And guess what? This process is hard. Let me be clear with you, but it is absolutely worth it. And all I ask from you is to take that one step of courage, that one step of vulnerability and strength, and move closer to Christ today.
Yeah, amen to that. And so, and I would also say nothing's going to change unless something changes.
Yes.
And so, like, if this is something that you are struggling with, again, there is no shame. You know, we've all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. Yes, we have all messed up. And you heard the stats. You're definitely not alone. I mean,
Absolutely.
It's just mind-blowing to me again. But yet, that should encourage you to take a step, to reach out, to get help. Not only is this for couples, but it is for teens, right?
We had, when we first started, we made a program for couples.
Okay.
And then we had people who were single reaching out to us. And we said, all right, we've got to make a course for people who are single. And then we had kids reaching out to us. And we have a video on our YouTube page. It's how to tell your parents you need help in overcoming this. And the amount of kids who said they were going to self-delete themselves, which is a fancy word for you know what, was astonishing. And the amount of kids who said, I'm not going to do that because I saw this video. And then they would message us the next day, say, I told my parents, and we're getting the course, and we're moving towards freedom, and this is great. Thank you so much. I am just some guy who trusted in the Lord, who had that kernel, that mustard seed of faith. And now we're starting to see mountains of people move in the right direction. We're raising up an army right now. And I'm telling you what, we need you to stand up and to fight. We need you to take that step. And so have that moment of strength, have that moment of vulnerability. We have courses for you. And you mentioned, do we reach out? We usually do a momentum call when someone starts. So I'll get on the phone with you personally. I'll talk to you and I'll work through any questions that you have, right? I'll help you as we start and I'll help you as you finish. We'll talk as we have a wrap-up call and everything. But no matter what your situation is, we are here for you. So just have that moment of strength.
Yeah. And so I can't definitely, I just encourage everybody just to really to dive in, because if you don't struggle with it, somebody you know is. This is where we need to change the culture. This is one of the areas that needs to be changed. And so I definitely want to encourage you all to, if you're struggling, to reach out to Team Vulnerable. Emmanuel, can you tell us how would one get connected with you?
Go to teamvulnerable.com and you can get our course. Again, it's for free. We are a nonprofit. So if you go through the course and you get value and you want to help us financially, hey, we'd love that as well too, because that allows us to go on more podcasts, to share the word of what we're doing, to help people have freedom, to help bring people closer to Christ. And we brought this up a lot, Jesus and Christ and my relationship with the Lord. If you're not a Christian and you have any questions about the Lord, reach out to me. I'd love to have that conversation with you. But our course is not just for Christians only. It's not just me reading 1,000 Bible verses. No, I believe the Lord brought you to me so I could help you through this, so you could help the next person through this, and you could help the next person through this. So whether you are a Christian for your entire life or you've never heard about the Lord, this course is for you. So don't worry about that one either way. But go to teamvulnerable.com. Check us out on YouTube, Instagram. Follow us. And just have that moment of strength and vulnerability, because you have no idea how much change that you can make. We have 600 people from 28 different countries who have gotten our course. And again, I was just some guy who trusted in the Lord, and the Lord has empowered us to be able to do this. So help us get that number to 6,000, then to 60,000, to 600,000, 6 million, 6 billion, and let's change this whole world. Let's make a difference.